Prim. Hello, everyone. My name is Josephine. Thank you, Prim. I'm really humbled and honored to be on this platform speaking to the ladies. I'm called Josephine Nassiwa. I am a telecommunications engineer by training, turned salesperson, and also I am a personal finance coach. I run a personal finance advisory called Hongera Financial Solutions. I'll talk more about it. And I also work with MTN Uganda, where I met Primera and have been working for the last 12 years. I work right now as a sales manager at MTN, and I am so glad to meet all of you. And I look forward to sharing with you the things I have learned on this journey of really bettering our personal finances, just for not only for us, but also for the generations to come, so that we can get that mentality that Africans are ridden with poverty. We need to get rid of that mentality, and it starts with us being cognizant of managing our finances well. So thank you, Prim. I think I can share my screen right now so that we can start the presentation. Just give me a minute. Please give me a minute to share my screen. Please let me know if you can see the screen right now.
Yes, I can.
Okay, perfect. So we'll get right into it. You're all welcome. Please feel at home. Okay, so I would like to start my presentation with a short story. Last year around November, my mother got a stroke. I remember it was a Saturday. My big sister called me. I was just in the Saturday mood of things, trying to get my children to their Saturday activities. And she was like, hurry up. Mom has got a stroke. You need to come to IHK hospital. She's been hospitalized. She said, drop everything and come. So I drove to IHK. And of course, as is the norm in our cultures, and I guess humanity-wise, the children and siblings are expected to raise finances to take care of their parents in the hospital. Now, you will not believe it, but I did not have the portion of money to give my contribution to my mother's hospital bill. And MACU, like I mentioned, I have worked for 13 years. Now, does that situation sound familiar? Now, I can give you another illustration. We usually get our payment for December, Christmas, from the employer around 15th of December. And of course, we are all excited to spend the money. We receive it with so much glee and excitement. December, chopping money. So, and indeed, we chop it, right? So in the past, I've been one of those people. I received the salary in December. I spend it on God knows what. And by beginning of January, I am ridden with anxiety and panic attacks because I have almost first spent all my money. And now I'm looking at January and I'm like, oh my God, what did I do? And then it's year after year, cycle repeating the same thing, okay? Does all this sound familiar to you? So my name is Josephine Nassiwa, as I mentioned earlier. I'm the CEO and founder of Hongera Financial Solutions Limited. And today I would like to talk to you about taking control of your finances, the power of unit trust funds. Now, before I go into the detail, I want to talk a little bit about what we do at Hongera Financial Solutions. Our mission is to train, teach, and coach every individual to manage their personal finances effectively by equipping them with tools, knowledge, and strategies in budgeting, managing expenses, living and staying out of debt, and investing their income to multiply it in order to hit their net worth goal. Now, our mission is simple. We want to build an army of financially literate and financially independent individuals with the end goal of eradicating generational poverty in 3 out of every 4 households on the African continent. So I'll be talking to you for about not more than 45 minutes. And the highlights of my presentation will be, I want you to understand what unit trust funds are. And also I will be giving you what the advantages of unit trust funds are. And most especially, I will share with you how you can use unit trust funds to leverage and take control of your finances. Now, at the end of this presentation, I want you to be able to start today to open your own unit trust funds and be able to manage your personal finances. Now, I know you may have a couple of questions. Please write them down, and I will have a brief Q&A session at the end of my presentation. So let's get right into the discussion. What are unit trust funds anyway? Okay, so I know many of you have heard this word being thrown around, but then somehow it seems so complicated and people don't really explain it. So you're like, whatever, let me just move on with my living paycheck to paycheck. So I want to break it down for you, okay? So unit trust funds are very simple. It's basically a collective investment scheme whereby money or funds or contributions from many investors like yourself and me is aggregated by the fund, yeah? Now, once the fund pulls this money together, it then invests the money in a diversified portfolio of assets, or what we call financial securities. Now, these financial securities can be fixed income securities, whereby you get a return on your investment in form of interest. This can be bonds, they can be treasury bills, they can be corporate notes, they can be bank deposits, or the securities that the fund invests in can be equity, which is stocks or shares, okay? So these funds are managed by what we call a fund manager. So this fund manager, their role is to buy and sell securities that I've mentioned above on your behalf, okay? They have expertise in investment, so you give them your money, they buy and sell securities on your behalf, they get a return on investment, which they share with you, the investor, in form of interest income. So it's that simple, really, and I hope we are together. Now, there are many unit trust players in Uganda. I acknowledge that there are other people with us who are not from Uganda, but specifically to the Uganda market, these people that I'm calling fund managers, as you can see on the slide, they take on the form of either insurance companies or investment companies like Zeno Technologies Uganda. So we have UAP, we have ICEA, we have Britam, we have Zeno Technologies, and then we have Sanlam. So on this slide, these are the fund managers who manage the unit trust funds in Uganda. So having known who the fund managers are, what are the types of unit trust funds? So they are categorized into 4 main categories. The first one is what we call the money market fund. with the money market fund, the fund manager will invest in short-term securities, okay? These take on the form of treasury bills, which maturity is around 1 to 3 years. They can also invest in corporate notes. So corporate notes are basically whereby corporations borrow money from the individuals, the public, and then they pay them back in form of interest. They can also be fixed bank deposits, which you all know, you fix money in the bank and then get an interest. Or they can be, or the fund can invest in bank call deposits, whereby they fix money with a bank, but they can get it at any one time. These are what they call money market funds. Now, these are low risk. They are categorized under low risk. The risk profile is low because the underlying asset, which is what the fund is investing in, is not really exposed to a lot of risk. Now, the second classification are the bond funds, which, as the name explains, here the fund manager, say UAP, Old Mutual, will get your money from the different investors and then invest it in bonds, okay? And now the bonds can take on two categories. They are government bonds, whereby basically the government borrows money from the public and from corporations. So here the fund manager will lend money to the government and earn an interest and then pay you. Or it can be corporate bonds, whereby now the entity which is lending money is a corporation or an organization. I hope we are together so far. I hope the technical jargon is not too much. You can raise up a hand and tell me in case you're lost, and I can go over the concept for you. Then the third category of unit trust funds are the equity funds. Now, this also, as the name suggests, the fund manager, let's say Sanlam, will get the money that it has pulled from the investors and then invest it in stocks of companies. Let's say MTN shares. The fund manager will buy shares, say from MTN. Now, these carry a higher risk. Please note that these carry a higher risk because by nature, the stock market is quite volatile. It can appreciate and depreciate. So these are risky. Now, the fourth category of the unit trust funds are the balanced funds, okay? So what the balanced funds do, they try to neutralize the risk from the equity funds. So here, the balanced funds, the fund manager will have some investment in shares, and then majority of the investment will be in the other financial securities like bonds and also the short-term securities that are invested in money market funds. Okay, I hope we are together so far. Let me know if I'm moving so fast. Okay, so now that we know what unit trust funds are, we've resolved the mystery, we know what they are. What then are the benefits and advantages of unit trust funds, okay? So on this slide, the first advantage and benefit of unit trust fund is that they allow you to compound your money. Now, I am sure you've heard of the saying quoted from Albert Einstein that compounding is the eighth wonder of the world. Those who understand it will earn from it, and those who don't end up paying it when they take loans, okay? So what happens with unit trust funds is when you give your money to the fund manager, let's say UAP Old Mutual, they will invest it, as I've explained, and then they will give you interest on this money that you've given them. Now, when you earn interest, they will put back that interest and then they will pay you interest on interest. So compounding is basically where your principal amount earns an interest. That interest is added back to the principal, and then now in the next iteration, interest is paid on the new sum. So I want to illustrate the power of unit trust funds versus putting your money in just a regular or fixed account with the bank, okay? Now I'm using an example, assuming you put 10 million. This is just for illustration purposes. You have 10 million, you put it on a fixed account with a bank versus someone who has 10 million and they put it in a unit trust fund, let's say with UAP or Mutual. So you can already see that at the end of 1 year, the yield from the fixed account is less than what the unit trust is giving you. Now, I'm using a unit trust example from UAP Old Mutual. These are the forecasts of their umbrella trust fund, which averagely returns 11.3%. Please note that it changes based on market variations. So you can see that at the end of 5 years in a unit trust fund, your money has grown to 17.59 million, while in a regular bank account, fixed account, you have 15.65 million. This is because in a bank account, the interest method is simple interest, which is linear. While on this side, with a unit trust fund, you have compounding. So you can see here that money in the unit trust fund has yielded by 12.39% more than in a fixed bank account. So this is one of the beautiful things about unit trust, is that they're going to compound your money. You literally put your money and your money gets to work. It grows on autopilot by the compounding principle. So that's one advantage, which is very key with unit trust funds, okay? We shall then look at other advantages that are benefits of having your money in a unit trust fund. They're easy to liquidate, yeah? Let's say you can actually put your money today and then tomorrow or the next day you can get it if you need it. They're easy to liquidate. With UAP Old Mutual, you can get your money within 1 to 2 days. Now, in Africa, I don't know if it's the same elsewhere, but in Uganda, mostly people are afraid of investing, or there's been a notion that you have to have a huge sum of money to start investing, and people end up retiring without having invested because they never arrived at that point where they had 100 million Uganda shillings at once to start the investment journey, which is not the right mindset. With unit trust funds, you are allowed to start with a small sum, which is 100,000 Uganda shillings for most of them. And then you do what we call cost averaging, whereby you add monthly deposits to your unit trust fund. So what happens is, if you're getting an income, be it from a business or a salary, you get a portion of that income and keep adding it to the unit trust fund monthly, and it grows. And before you know it, by the principle of marginal gains, small increments over time, your balance has grown into something very big, okay? These are the 3 main advantages with unit trust funds. Now, how then are you going to use unit trust funds to take control of your personal finances? Now, I like this quote down here, which says, "A woman's best protection is a little money of her own." I don't know if we have men on the call, but no offense to men. We women like to have a little bit, not a little bit actually, a lot bit of money of our own to be able to spoil yourself, do something without having to ask someone, okay? So, but then how can you get to this position of financial control if you're not managing your personal finances well? And how even do you manage them if you don't know what to manage in the first place? So before I take you to what the unit trust funds are going to help you do in order to manage your personal finances, I want to share with you the 5 pillars of personal finances so that we can clearly see which of the 5 the unit trust funds are going to help us solve, okay? So first, We have budgeting. Budgeting is basically telling your money where to go. I don't know if you guys have, but in the past, I've been in the situation where I spend money and then before I know it, I can't even have an account of what that money has done, or later on where it has gone. It's like the money has wings. It has flown. So that scenario usually happens if you're not budgeting, and more so if you're not tracking. If you're not tracking your expenses to make sure that you're sticking to your budget. A lot of us have this mentality. We just keep swiping, and then by the time you know it, there's nothing to swipe. So budgeting and tracking expenses is the first pillar. The second pillar is saving and investing. Now, I know that when you say saving, automatically people switch off because they're like, now I'm spending everything. What can I save? Okay. But saving in this regard is planning your finances in a way that you put a small amount of money aside for expenses that you have planned in the short term, or building an emergency fund. That's the saving we are talking about. And investing is now putting your money in an asset where with a higher yield, yeah, where it's going to grow and multiply exponentially over time. Now, debt management. Debt management is also a topic that's is very sensitive in our culture here. From my experience, being heavily indebted leaves you with no money to invest. And I've seen it with my colleagues here in the workplace. You get your paycheck and then you have to literally give off like 3/4 of that paycheck to the debt collector, which usually makes the quality of life kind of difficult, and also it leaves you with no money for investing. So you have to be able to pay off your debt very quickly so that now you can start aggressively investing and growing your money. Now, for clarity's sake, when I speak of investing, in this case, most especially when I speak of investing, I'm referring to investing in fixed income securities because it's easy. Anyone can do it. And also for people who are working, it's sometimes hard to run a fully fledged brick and mortar business alongside with your career, but you can gradually over time put aside a small portion of your money and invest in these financial instruments that are available, like stocks. Stocks are a bit risky, but mostly bonds. Bonds are very easy to do, and then you can invest in them over time. If my host allows, in another future presentation, I can talk mainly about investing in bonds and how you can use them to plan for retirement, to plan for purchases in real estate. I can share broadly more about bonds, okay? So the other pillar is insurance, okay? Now, the thing with insurance, when I talk of insurance, I'm talking about it in a sense that you're using it as protecting your assets against unforeseen circumstances. So a lot of people are so negative towards insurance, but it has a role to play in your personal finances, not necessarily as an investment option, because the yields from insurance may not be as superior as what you would get from bonds, but in a sense that it will protect your assets against unforeseen circumstances, not to mention insurance to cover you when you're not working in your old age. So, and that can only be started on now. So we should stop frowning against insurance. We should instead ask ourselves, okay, when I'm planning, let's say for my retirement, I will have medical bills. I don't want to burden my children. So let me open up, and I will not be working. So Jubilee from MTN will not be there to save me. Let me instead open up a policy that I can start building now. You know, when those insurance companies would come to you and they show you the forecast of 20 years, you're like, 20 years? That's so far. But that's actually what it is. The reason why it's 20 years, because you do it gradually, slowly by slowly, and by the time you enter retirement and you're not working, you already have your insurance cover sorted, and you won't have to either burden your children or liquidate, okay, your net worth at that point in order to take care of health issues or other issues that need insurance. So insurance is very key in our personal finances. Then the other pillar that we always never talk about, especially in corporate, the corporate circles, is retirement planning. I don't know if many of you have seen the situation whereby the older lot in our workplaces is given voluntary dismissal, and then they're not ready. They're not ready to go because they've ignored retirement planning. When they entered the company, we did not do anything. No one told us, no one taught us. We just did not plan for retirement. So it's also very, very, very crucial. And the key thing in retirement planning is building an asset that will give you cash flows in retirement. Because in retirement, remember, you're not working, but cash is king. You need cash to take care of your day-to-day expenditures, not just going on vacation or whatever, but food, clothing, and all that you need a cash flow asset. Now, again, if the host allows, bonds can do that for you. They can help you create an asset that can give you a monthly income in retirement. And I can show you further in detail how that is done and how you can forecast and start on your investment journey in bonds in order to build up all these things that I am talking about. Okay, I've spoken quite a mouthful on this slide. Let's move on to the next. I hope we are together so far. Now, having known these pillars for first personal finances, how then do unit trusts help to organize these pillars? So unit trusts will come in the second pillar, which is what I call saving in quotes. So saving, I mentioned that you're putting aside money for an emergency fund. That's application number 1 of a unit trust fund. So I did a broader video on emergency funds. If you go to the Hongera Financial Solutions YouTube channel, you will be able to see the broader video on emergency funds, where I talked about what they are, why you need them, how you can set them up. But just in a nutshell, emergency funds are really an asset you build with cash. You set it aside for unexpected expenses, can be a medical bill for a loved one, can be unexpected home repairs, and so many other things, okay? Now, what amount of money should be in your emergency fund? It should be 3 to 6 months of your monthly expenses. Now, please note that you don't build it overnight. Many of the personal finance things are built gradually. We need to get away from this mindset of instant gratification. It's not there. Even the Bible says that he who builds gradually will grow his riches. That's a spiritual principle. It's gradual growth. So same for the emergency fund, you build it over time, and you build it in a place whereby your money is not going to be eroded by inflation. That's where a unit trust comes in, because in general, unit trust interest rates are on average about 11.3%, depending on what's in the market. So that's already your hedged against inflation. You will have capital preservation, which means that whatever money you're investing will not be eroded, it will be preserved. That is why you cannot grow your emergency fund in a bank. because there the money will be eroded and face the negative impacts of inflation. So application number 1 of how you can use the unit trust to take control of your personal finances is by using them to build your emergency fund. Then I like this particular application, sink funds. So we have emergency funds, then we have what we call sink funds. So sink funds are basically where you grow money for a specific expense or goal that you're going to partake of in the nearby future. Okay, again, they are not mandatory, but it depends on your financial situation. Some of us have debt. We spend most of our income paying back debt. You may not be able to grow a sink fund. Maybe at that point, your focus should be on getting out of debt first before you can do the fancy things that sink funds allow you to do. But if you have the leeway, because with personal finances, it's not just about investing for the future, you also have to take care of yourself, self-care, because that's where you get the rejuvenation. Your quality of life has to be looked at as well. So with sink fund, I'll just talk briefly through some examples of sink funds that you can have. I've put here first fruits fund. Now for clarity's sake, first fruits in the Christian perspective of things is when you give, let's say if you're working, your income, I usually do the January salary, you give it back to God. Okay, now in the past, I would get the January salary, give it to God, send it to my church, and then I would look at God and say, Sevo, I've given you my money. Now I need you to throw some money for me from heaven so that I can get through February because I've given it to you. But that's not wisdom, okay? Because God has also given you wisdom. He expects you to be wise. Yeah? He mentioned somewhere in the Bible the ants that put aside money for future events to happen. So now what I do is during, let's say this year, I have a sink fund with UAP Old Mutual where I put money monthly, so that come January 2024, when I have given my first fruits in January, yeah, now I will just go to my sink fund, cash out, and then use that money. For February, I prepare beforehand instead of like giving all the money and then you're busy pestering God, yet God gave you wisdom, or pestering your spouse for that matter. Yeah, so we have to be smart about these things, and God honors good management of our finances. We are supposed to be good stewards. We are supposed to multiply this income that He gives us. We are not supposed to squander it. He who is faithful in the little, more is added to them. So He expects us to be faithful with our finances. Now, you can have Christmas spending fund, of course, like that scenario I gave at the beginning, whereby a lot of us now wait for our December salary. We spend it on Christmas, then January, school fees, we are just looking angers, okay, because we've been unfaithful with our money. So what you can do, again, marginal gains, little by little, start in January. By the way, you can now, I think, tell that you can have more than one unit trust fund. Now, with my experience with UAP, you can have more than one unit trust fund where you can grow these small buckets of things that you're doing. So starting January, you put little by little, and by December, you have a lump sum of money you can use. And then your December salary, remember you have to invest. Investing does not stop. You can still invest and then plan and plan for school fees, plan for investing, so that you're responsible. So I can use this on the right. You can see a table which is from the unit trust fund calculator. Let's say I'm putting aside 200,000. Again, you remember I talked about month cost averaging. You do regular contributions. You don't put once and sleep and expect money to just rain down from heaven. you have to regularly put money and then you wait for it to compound. So if you do 200,000, let's say, starting this month, we're in March, by December, this is after 10 months, the money will have grown to 2,107,000. Now it may not look, the growth may not look much, because again, with compounding, it's a function of time, okay? But when you come to the years, to the left, when you come to the years over time, as the interest compounds, then your yield becomes more noticeable. So compounding is a function of both time and the contributions that you're making monthly. So you can also have your vacation fund. I know most of us see our friends going to Dubai in December. We are like, hey, mama, these rich people. But these people are actually just being smart. Yeah, they're being good stewards of their money, as we are just squandering every paycheck. But these guys are like, but this vacation thing is not so expensive. Let me just put aside. And then they're even putting in banks. Now we have superior knowledge. We can put in our unit trust, and it doesn't have to be even like a fancy place like Dubai. You can just take your kids to Ginger. Like, it's just all about planning, really. And of course, further education is another sync fund that you can start up. Are we together so far? Primera, I'm seeing some questions in the chat. I don't know how I can answer them at this point. Or should I wait for the end?
I have a comment. Yeah, you can just first finish, but I have a comment from Daisy who says this is the clearest explanation of unit trusts I have listened to.
Oh,
so, yes.
Okay. Thank you, Daisy.
Someone else asked about the recording. We shall send the recording. They can ask more questions in the chat as you continue. Okay,
no worries. I'm soon coming to the end, so we'll get to the questions very quickly. Okay, let's move on now. The last application of unit trust funds and how it can help you control your personal finances. Now, I know it's bonus season for those of you in the corporate world. Around this time is when companies are paying bonuses and you get omudidi. Now, you can use a unit trust fund to do what we call an investment, parking your money, which is literally what the term says. You put your money there as you make up your mind, what you want to invest in. Okay, now again, like I said, if the host allows me, in another session, we can talk about investing in bonds specifically and how you can leverage and do so many things with this money that you're going to get from your bonuses. Now, the money, so when you park your money in a unit trust fund, it will be hedged against inflation. That's number one. And then also you will achieve two things. You will have both capital preservation, but also because of the compounding, you'll have a portion of percentage yield depending on the time and duration for which you park it, meaning that it will grow and multiply even as you wait to invest it in probably something with a bigger yield like bonds or real estate and things like that. Okay, so those are the ways in which you can use unit trust funds to improve your personal finances. Now, having spoken all that so far, I've told you what the unit trust funds are. You've understood them. You've seen who are the players in the market currently in Uganda who run these funds. You've seen the advantages of the unit trust funds, how they are superior to the bank accounts. And you've also seen what you can use them to do in this journey to manage and control and better your personal finances. So now we have to take action, because unfortunately, everything I've shared will be just information unless you apply, not so? Yes, so there is this famous Chinese proverb, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, which essentially means that if you don't take a single step today, you will literally stay where you are. The 1,000 miles can never become a reality. So all that to say is that we need to take action starting today. Now, I've come up with a small framework that can help us really implement the things I've shared. Step number 1, I would like us to determine how much of our income is for investment. Now, again, there are ways of which this can quantitatively be determined, especially if you want to invest in bonds. But for now, until we have that discussion, just for the sake of us implementing and not losing track, financial experts say for investing, you do about 15 to 20% of your income, depending on your income, your financial goals, and your current financial situation. So when you get your income, take off 15 to 20% for now until we can do the bonds presentation, so that your goal is clearer and you know exactly how much you need to be investing in bonds per month. Okay, so step number 2, of course, there are expenses. You need to determine how much of your income is to be allocated to expenses. Now, like I mentioned, many of us have no clue what our total expenses are. First, because maybe we are not budgeting, and secondly, we budget and the budget falls into shambles. Again, we end up overspending the budget because we are not tracking. So tracking the expenses is a very, very key element also in coming up with your budget, but also helping you stick to your budget. So if you follow, I'd like you to follow our social media platforms, Hongera Financial Solutions, Facebook, Instagram, subscribe to our YouTube channel and Twitter as well. We shall run Track Your Expenses Challenge starting 1st April. Why it's 1st April is because I want you to first get the income, the salary, because I believe majority of us could be in formal employment, and even then in Uganda, I don't know if there are businesses that pay salaries weekly. Most do end of month. That's why I've put it to 1st April, where on these social media platforms, it will be a moment of transparency. I will share what I am spending every day, tracking daily. What this will help us with, it will help us minimize our expenses, because when you're accountable to people, then you're not just spending recklessly. Also, it will help us look in our expenses and identify leakage where we are overspending unnecessarily, going to Javas when we can eat at the workplace. And then we will get those savings that we've realized from that tracking, and then now you divert it into either growing your emergency fund. If you've wanted to take that vacation, you start putting now that money, you divert it to, say, a vacation fund. Okay, so that will start on the 1st April, but please do follow the social media platform so that you can take part in that. But even before that challenge, you can start right now to track daily. Okay, with time I will share an expense tracker, but for now you can just use the Notes app on your phone and just write a date, and then write the things that you spend on, whether it's transport, whether it's eating a chapati. Everything must be tracked, because that's the only way you're going to know exactly where is this money going. You have to be in control. Okay, then the 3rd step in our taking action plan is I want you to now think about your other financial goals. These are emergency. Remember, now we've taken care of investing, we've taken care of expenses. Now an emergency fund is non-negotiable, so that must happen. We need to start on it today. Okay, again, we like Primera said, I posted what you see here, the same picture screenshot in the G4G page, because we are running an emergency fund challenge. Again, doing it together, because I wasn't say together we are better, but yes, together you're able to. There's something about like when you know that other people are looking, yeah, you can't afford to like not do it. It's easier to do together. So we are doing this emergency fund challenge. In the next 10 months, by December, we should be the figures you see here. So there are options. There is option 1, you can do the 370K. And for those of you who are not in Uganda, you can also come up with your own. For the option 1 is $100 per month. So you can do $100 in your currency. And then option 2 is 200,000. And then option 3 is 100,000 in a unit trust fund. Remember, now we know that emergency funds are built based in a place where they're not going to be eroded against inflation, and a unit trust fund is one of these places. So again, follow our social media platforms so that you can take part in this challenge, so that we keep each other accountable. And every month I'll be sharing a tracker, a graphical representation. This is how far we've reached. And then at the end of the year, we'll be able to say, congratulations, because now you're on your way to building your emergency fund. So please note that if you have an emergency fund and you have an actual emergency, you're free to withdraw some money from it, but be wary of what emergencies are. Things like, oh, I saw this nice shoe, now I want it so badly. That's not an emergency. It's actual emergencies that you use this fund for. So you have to have some degree of discipline. Now, sink funds. Now, if you are paying debt, if you're using a big portion of your money to pay back the bank or the circle, you can choose like one sink fund that's most important to you, okay? But if you're not able to, that's okay. You should focus on debt repayment for now. And I will again cover other methods of how you can get out of debt very quickly, so that now you can start focusing on aggressive investments, say in bonds, and then these other things that we are talking about that are pillars of personal finances. So first fruits fund, it's important to me, so that's a must for me. Vacation, if you want to travel in December, you can also, based on your income levels, you can start growing that fund as well. So you're going to identify all these other funds that you need to grow, and then we are going to grow them in the unit trust funds. Now, step 4, the actual work now is setting up the unit trust fund, okay, where we are going to grow the emergency fund and the sink funds that you've identified in the previous steps. Now, I mentioned that I do my emergency funds and sink funds with UAP Old Mutual, and I am volunteering to help you with the process. So once you've gone through the different steps of the action points, and now you say, okay, first I want an emergency fund, then I have one sink fund, or I have 3 sink funds, and this is how much I want to, for the emergency fund, I want to do this option. Then for sink funds, I want to put like minimum 100K per month. Just send me a message on WhatsApp on that number, and I will be glad to help you with the process to open your trust funds with UAP. Now, the next step that you need to do after that is automation. Most of these things, they are good plans, but you need to automate them for them to work. Why? You need to remove the barriers of human temptation, because if you say, I'll be taking every month, chances are there's a day you're going to need money for tomatoes and you want to put money in your unit trust. But if you've automated from your bank, then the money can just wire on autopilot. So you need to automate so that now you're managing your personal finances on autopilot. You're not like running around the bank and creating barriers in your journey and creating avenues for failure. Okay. Yeah, so that's the 4th step. Now we've come to the end of the presentation. We've covered quite a lot. I've talked about what unit trust funds are. You're now very well conversant with them. You know the advantages and their benefits. You also know what you're going to use them for to start like unlocking this personal finance growth journey. Okay. Now, there's a quote, I know you've heard it, the best time to start was yesterday. The next best time is always now. You may be thinking, why didn't I hear this information 10 years ago? I would have it all figured out. Yes, it is true, but you have now. You have now. So if you take anything from this presentation, I want you to start on the actions that I've given you, so that you can, by the end of the year, first you'll be able to say, okay, first my money has gone here, my emergency fund is at this amount, I have these sync funds, then I also took off money to invest. You can know that this is what I've done with my money, and you can see with your own eyes. Okay, so take steps starting now. Please do follow us on social media for anything to do with personal finance advisory and how you can grow your personal finances, investment options. Also subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your time. I'm honored to talk to all of you. I'll now take questions now.
All right, thank you so
Mira.
much. Thank you so much, Josephine. For the very first time, most people are understanding unit trusts. We've heard about them in the corridors, in flyers, but not really understood them. Thank you very much. I have a comment from Ethel. She says, you're amazing. These unit trust funds make sense. It's now like clearer. And then I have Maureen who says she's going to be at your desk on Monday. And then
I'll wait for her.
Yeah, so Jackie says she has sync funds and it's the best decision she ever made, which is nice to hear that, like someone is actually doing some of these things. Then I have a question about what's the difference between UTF and simply taking out insurance policies?
Okay, do I answer it now?
Yes, you can answer it.
Okay, so taking out insurance policies, of course, insurance policies are for different things. You have the life covers, you have the education. I would advise to do the education ones because they have their own benefits. But then I personally am not for taking insurance policies as a form of investment per se, because there are superior methods or things you can invest in that have higher yields. Okay, and then with insurance policies, you cannot liquidate easily. Okay, they have certain restrictions with liquidating, and there is you're exposed to loss of your money because they will charge you. There's a penalty. But with unit trust funds, there's ease of liquidation. When you need your money, you can go and get it without like penalties or withdrawal fees and things like that. So that's why I said like there is capital preservation with unit trust, which may not be the case with insurance policies if you're wanting to do the same goals like sync funds, like emergency funds. But for goals like education, life cover, of course, then insurance policies have their place in that regard. I hope I've clarified.
Yes, I hope so. They're going to give me a comment and make me know that they have understood. Okay. Esther wanted to ask a question. I've allowed you to speak. I don't know if you're still able to speak or ask your question. Please go ahead.
Okay.
Right. As we wait for her to speak, and then they're asking me, the question is it possible for one to open a unit trust for their children?
Yes, it's very possible. It is. You just submit their birth certificate, and I think your details as well. So yes, it is very possible. And advisable as well.
Thank you. The first question that was about the UTF and insurance policies, and the person who asked the question says it's now very clear.
Okay.
There's a question on bonds. What is your opinion on bonds? I believe it has a negative impact as far as time value of money is concerned because of the inflation over the years. What do you think?
Okay. I personally I must confess, I love bonds so much. I talk about them a lot. I think people are sick of hearing me talk about bonds. Now, inflation will affect all investments, including land and all that. But if you look at it in that way, yeah, I think maybe you'll allow me to come and talk about bonds and show them the effects of inflation and time value of money, because even if you did not put that money aside, you would not have it in the first place. Yeah. So there are very few things that can act against inflation. This would be real estate. This would be commodities like gold and silver, which are rare for the Ugandan market. So it leaves you with only real estate. And then there's also the issue that you need to diversify. Okay. So yes, bonds can be affected by inflation. That is true, but so can all the other investments. You can't run away from inflation. What you do is you diversify your investment portfolio. So you use bonds for certain things like creating cash flow that you'll use in retirement. And I'll show you how to do that. Then you can use them also to grow money that you can later invest in. Now the things that are not very much affected by inflation, like real estate. So you juggle, you play the game and have your investment portfolio with those that are at risk, negative effects of inflation, and then those that are not. But yes, bonds must be a part of your portfolio for sure.
All right, so we're going to make time and go through bonds. I know you love bonds so much, but my question personally would be, when do I switch from, when I do unit trust savings, when do I switch to bonds? At what point? Is it the value that I've accumulated, or is it just a decision that I make?
That's a very good question, Prim. So you can do both. You can do both. So I would advise unit trust for the things that I've shared: emergency funds, sink funds for short-term, short-term goals, and then bonds, because by nature they have a higher interest rate, which is on average 15.74%. Okay, so you can then do bonds like now to start growing your net worth. For example, while you're using unit trust for sink fund, emergency fund, so you can have both at the same time. It's not that you have to do unit trust first and then bonds. You can run both concurrently.
All right, so I know you're very good with the bonds, and I'm going to just ask, when is the next time that they're opening up for us to buy, which is a very good rate?
Okay, so with bonds, okay, you can either buy on the primary market, which is you wait for when the government auctions, okay? Now, that method is a bit cumbersome because you have to do all the admin work. If you do bonds in such a way that you want to have compounding, you have to do all the admin work yourself, because remember, they pay you coupons back into your own account twice a year. Then you have to now reinvest that money. Okay. Now, however, there's a more superior way to do bonds, and that's on the secondary market with a brokerage firm. Now, we have BIK Capital. They are a brokerage firm that deal in bonds on an exchange called AltX. There are two exchanges in Uganda. There is the USE, which we all know, and then there's AltX, which deals majorly in bonds with BIK as the brokerage. So when you do through BIK, you can buy at any one time, at any one day. You don't have to wait for the government to auction. And also with BIK, they can give you a better rate than when you're going directly to the bank. Why? Because they are buying in bulk. Yeah, they're buying in bulk, and then they're able to give you a better rate. And then also they're helping you do the whole compounding thing. So I can share the calendar, the auction calendar for primary market with you, Prim, and then maybe you'll help me share with the ladies, because it's every month. Yeah. Or you can do secondary market, where you don't have to wait for government to auction. You can do at any one time till you can do your investment. You're muted.
Right, sorry about that. So I have a question from Gloria. She's asking if she has 10 million shillings that she has saved and she's looking to save that money for retirement. What should she use it? Should she save it either a unit trust or a bond?
Or she's going to put it in bonds because it's going to give her higher yield. Okay. Remember, the goal is to be hedged against inflation as much as you can. Okay. If you're looking at long term, because bonds is 15.74%, and then unit trust is about 11.3%. So you're going to put it in bonds, but then you won't only stop at that 10 million. You're going to now work out your what I call the PIN. PIN is passive income number. So once you have this passive income number, it will help you know how much you have to invest in a bond every month in order to earn a certain amount of passive income. Let's say when you leave employment or when you retire. So you won't only stop at putting 10 million, you're going to now get a portion of your income monthly and buy a bond every month, so that the coupons that are paid to you compound, and then with time you've grown your money to a huge sum, and then you can earn passive income after that for retirement.
All right, Josephine, I think it is clear that the next section is about bonds, and I know that you love them so much.
Yes.
I really, I've had interactions with you, but this is so far the best interaction I've ever had with you.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that. Thank you for inviting. Yeah. Yes.
All right. So I am not going to have any other conversations with you. I am going to wait for here, right here. We can actually do it next Friday. If it's okay with everybody, we can have next Friday at this time.
Let's first talk. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about the date, and then we can see how
have a session. Yeah, to have a session just about bonds. Then there's a question about payments, but I know you're going to give G4G something, a good discussion when you are. If someone had come for this session, please contact Josephine and see how you can organize in terms of how she takes you through. So thank you very much, and wish you a happy weekend to everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Prim. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.